So good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's session. I'm your host, Mohammed Shahnawaz, President of Government Blockchain Association, UAE chapter. Government Blockchain Association, or GBA as it's called, is a technology agnostic global association whose mission is to promote and accelerate blockchain adoption in government sector via education, advocacy, and partnerships. We have around 50 chapters around the world with headquarters in Virginia, USA. The main aim of the local GBA chapters is to share the best use cases of their respective chapters uh, around the world and act as a catalyst in creating a public dialogue in the positive use of blockchain technology. So GBA UAE is young, and we had our first meeting on February 2020, and we are passionate about building a bridge between the busy blockchain professionals and the blockchain aficionados like us, who would love to know the developments taking place in the blockchain world. So a small disclaimer is we are not affiliated with any government or private entity. We do not endorse any projects, and all information in these sessions should not be construed as legal, financial, or investment advice, and should be used only for educational purposes. Before I start, I want to make an announcement. We over over the months we've been trying to get this prominent blockchain personality in blockchain world, and yesterday confirmed he's showing up on May. Who's this personality? Just wait till the end of the webinar. We'll tell you who is he. So let's start today's session with discussing the digital transformation that's taking place around the world right now due to the pandemic. Uh, if you see this graph here, just last year, 2019, around $213 billion were spent on the IT market and ICT market for digital transformation in MENA region. Uh, the present pandemic is just going to accelerate this. The reason is that most of the governments wants to transform because they want to prevent physical contact and reduce paper. One of the cities in the MENA region who's forefront in implementing the smart technology and cutting edge technology is Smart Dubai. Smart Dubai is a technology arm of Dubai government whose main initiative is to transform Dubai into world's smartest and happiest city on earth. They have many initiatives, and two of the main initiatives are, one of them is blockchain strategy. Blockchain strategy was initiated on 2016 by His Highness Sheikh Hamdan to establish a roadmap for introduction and adoption of blockchain technology for Dubai in both private and public sector. Uh, as of as a result of this initiative, on January 2020, 24 industry use cases were implemented in 8 different sectors in Dubai. As a result, Dubai was crowned World Capital of Blockchain by CNBC, and Dubai recently also won first Smart City on Blockchain Award in Barcelona Smart City Expo. The second initiative, which Smart Dubai has, is paperless strategy. On 2017, Sheikh Hamdan, His Highness Sheikh Hamdan, basically urged Smart Dubai to ensure that by 2021, all the government entities will go paperless. That means by 31st December 2021, 11:59 p.m., paper will become history and a thing of mystery for government entities in Dubai. Uh, so why is this initiative very important? Is because there a lot of cost goes in procuring and transport of paper, and it's also environmentally damaging. So this initiative will save in a year around 130,000 trees. So it helps in the environment, and also going paperless and this digital transformation, people don't have to travel to the government institutions for getting the job done. They could sit on the laptop and get the job done. So it can save a lot in energy and prevent the greenhouse gases. And this result is saving can save up to $3 billion, which is $3 billion. You could just make two Burj Khalifas in a year. So and also a lot of it saves a lot of man hours and productivity. So as a result of this, by now, around according to Smarts Dubai, 22nd of April, 14 government entities cut their paper consumption by 64.9% to date. So they're on track to meet their goal. And also another thing is that due to the pandemic, this is very, very relevant, and Dubai was prepared for this. So you don't have to go for most of the government jobs. You don't have to go to the government office. You can do online, and also by reduction of using paper, you could help prevent transmission of the virus. So these initiatives are already helping Dubai during this pandemic. So today we are going to talk about implementers of the blockchain world. We're going to talk about their experiences and challenges faced when implementing the blockchain projects. Our first guest is Mr. Maroaun Aouri. Maroaun is Chief Architect and Digital Transformation Director of Cognizant. He has over 18 years of experience working not only in the wide range of companies like Bell, Booz, Dell, and now Cognizant. He also worked around the world in Canada, Tunisia, Qatar, and Oman. And today we're going to talk about a digital wall project with it's a federal project with UAE government. Our second guest is Waqas Mirza, who is a graduate of London Business School, and he's the founding CEO of Avanza Innovations. Avanza Innovation is a part of Avanza Group. Avanza Group is an 18-year-old company, and that has over 300 customers across 45 countries around the world, implementing cutting-edge solutions. And 2 years ago, Waqas started Avanza Innovation to specialize in deploy blockchain, AI, robotic process automation in government and enterprise sector. We'll soon talk about many projects, exciting projects Avanza is doing. Our third guest is Ali Safri, who has more than 20 years of experience in technology field, and he worked for Agility and PwC Logistics before joining Avanza Group, and has been with Avanza with more than 11 and a half years. So good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the introduction, Mohammed.
Yes. So the agenda is we will first Maroaun is going to present, and then Waqas is going to present for 15 minutes. Then we're going to have a 30 minutes Q&A session. After that, we're going to have we'll open the we'll ask the audience to ask questions. So yeah. So Maroaun, go ahead.
Very good. Thank you very much. Can you see my screen,
Yeah.
Mohammed and team?
Yeah.
Very good, very good. So as Mohammed was mentioning, my main expertise is digital transformation. So I am not a specialist in blockchain. I cover a variety of technology like Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and those domains are really coming to sit on the top of many previous mainstream architecture and design pattern and previous technologies. So many of the architects and many of the technology people are just rebirth. They've been reborn after this new generation of technology. So you will see a lot of reusability, a lot of similarity between blockchain, IoT, AI, as well as the other more sophisticated technology with the previous mainstream technology we've been delivering for the past 20 years. But we need to abstract a little bit those concepts to see the similarity beyond the gadget and the name and the buzz. So today the main objective is to talk about an implementation a live implementation of a project in blockchain that has been implemented in UAE for the government of UAE, exactly for the federal government. So let's get started. So here, what we have is a government strategic objective. In UAE, one of the good things is the government is having a strong vision, looking forward vision, but it is very much well executed as well. They are very serious about the implementation of those strategies. So this specific project is an output of a vision to reduce by 50% the government transaction in UAE. So this reduction will be equivalent to a saving of 11 billion Emirati dirham and a saving of 100 million document, as well as saving of 50 plus million working hours. So those numbers have been estimated by management consulting mandate previously done, not as part of this particular project. This project is one of many other projects that will support the digital transformation of the government in UAE. One of the ancestors of this particular project is the smart services, smart government, smart services, which has been initiated about 5 years ago, out of which a variety of project has been identified. This one is named the Digital Vault. This one entity. Another one was the GPS, which is the government business, government service bus, the GSB, sorry. And FedNet. FedNet is the cloud of the government. And there was a variety of initiative that has been mentioned and recommended as part of that strategy. Today, we will go into a specific implementation of blockchain. Blockchain here is really playing a role of an audit management, an audit trail, and the verification platform, rather than a functionality by itself. So we are not talking here about cryptocurrency. We are not talking about, let's say, logistic use case. Technically, we are not storing any business data or document inside the blockchain. The main data that is stored in the blockchain is supporting to more functional data, more functional capability conduct as part of a mobile application. So this mobile application is under one concept named UAE Pass. UAE Pass is much bigger project that is offering to the citizens as well as the resident and visitor in UAE a national digital identity, which is passwordless, paperless profile that will provide access to the government commercial services. It will help sign, verify, and share digital versions of documents. In a simple manner, we may consider this particular digital vault as a key feature as part of UAE Pass. This particular feature is equivalent to a Google Drive of the citizen. It will help you to share your digital documents. But this sharing is a little bit more sophisticated because it is supported by an appropriate layer of privacy management, an appropriate layer of onboarding the authorized entity as part of the ecosystem, an appropriate consent management that is managed between the different contributors in the value chain. The Digital Vault has been rolled out across UAE today. It is covering 84 federal and local private entities through 158 channels, covering 5,000 plus services and 334,000 regular users. One thing you may have noticed during the COVID-19 we received as resident and citizen of UAE message saying that, hey, Mr. Citizen, hey, Mr. Resident, please do not go to any physical entity from the government. Feel free to access all the services of the government online. This is a bold statement. It means that there's a lot of effort that has been done to digitize all the services from a business process perspective, from an application perspective, from a data perspective, from an integration, as well as infrastructure, security, and operation. All this ecosystem has been in place. So now with the hit of COVID-19, it's a real practice of moving in a faster pace to a digital society. So this is a view of the model before digital vault and the model within or after digital vault. There is mainly three entities. One entity is the issuer. The issuer is any entity that is recognized by the government, private or public, that is providing a service and providing documentation, a certificate that is useful for the citizens. For example, a passport. For example, an Emirate ID, a university certificate, a birth certificate. All those specific documents usually has been gathered by the citizen either physically by going to visit a specific premise of an entity or receiving it through a mobile application without specific level of verification except the address or an email. Today, any other service provider, which is on the right side, let's say a bank, is not 100% sure of the veracity of the data. How legitimate is the data? Has it been forged? And there is many cases, or let's say some cases, of fraud. Today, by having the digital vault, any issuer is able to send documentation digitally to the digital vault after being signed as part of the blockchain. So there is identity registration, and that is issuance certificate that is verified in the blockchain. The citizen will have as well an identification of his identity and a different set of authorization. For example, the proof of delegation, which is a proof of consent. And you have a service provider from the other side who is acting as a verifier of the transaction, verifier of the real document, the business document itself, and a verifier and the processor of that particular document. So in this specific diagram, we can see issuers from the left side sending or issuing specific official documentation, passport, residence certificate, and or Emirate ID. Those data will be shared to the digital vault, storing the real document. This transaction will be registered in the blockchain as well to confirm the timestamp of that transaction, the issuer of that transaction, the verification of the identity of that issuers. This combination of this data will be stored permanently in the distributed ledger. Later on, the user will have access to that document in order to share it with a specific service provider. This user, when going, for example, to a bank, in order to open a bank account, doesn't need to send an email with several attachments or take a bunch of physical document to the bank. Today, he can just scan a QR code in the bank, and that QR code will directly identify what are the official documents already in the digital vault of the user and ask for a permission to send them and send them directly. And in case any document is not yet available on the mobile app, which is supported by blockchain of the user, it will automatically send requests to the issuers in order to pull copies of those documents digitally and send it in a seamless manner to the service provider. Which will happen is the blockchain will provide a registry for the identity. It will register the identities of issuers, users, and service providers. It will record the proof of issuance of each document. It will record the proof of presentation. Every service provider, after seeing a particular document, he will issue automatically a proof of presentation. Then there is a verification for the document validity done by the service provider directly by interrogating the blockchain, and the issuers and the user will have the opportunity to revoke credentials. And as we said, both issuers and service provider must be registered in the network and must comply with the blockchain policy. This particular project, even though its nature and the tip of the iceberg is technology specific, is supported by a very comprehensive work in order to build a strategy, an operating model, a policy to use the blockchain, as well as a defined onboarding process for the issuers and the service providers. This particular activity has been done in mainly 4 steps. First step is to identify the main use cases and identify which use case is applicable for blockchain and which use case should be a priority for the government in order to initiate its implementation. And second, there is the design step where we design the solution that is specific to this particular implementation, the selection of the technology stack, the selection of the design pattern, the definition of the different components of the specific solution, how to make it secure, how to make it scalable, how to make it flexible, how to make it agile, including the layer of user experience as part of the mobile application. The third step was defining the full strategy. I'm saying it's for third step, but in reality, it's 2 work streams, a management work stream and technology work stream. The work stream of strategy has been also running in parallel with requirement management, the definition of the use cases, and the design, which will help us to identify the current state of the processes, the application, the data, the integration, the infrastructure, and the element related to blockchain in the federal government and local governments. Then we define the benchmark, an international benchmark of the implementation of blockchain in government, as well as specific use cases. Then we define the target state, which is what is the best target state that the government of UAE will aim to achieve. Then we created a gap analysis, and we identify what are the missing building blocks in order to be built. Now we go to some of the advantages. So the main advantage for the user is the possibility to request and share credentials. And by the way, the word credentials in this context mean a document, a secured document, a certified document, which will have an improvement of the overall service experience, which is simpler, easier, and faster. He's able to share the document easily in a reliable manner, and a reduced cost and time. From an issuer perspective, there is a reduction of cost and a reduction of fraud. From a service provider, There is simplification of the operation, a reduction of the verification and the processing cost, as well as an improvement of the customer engagement. And here we can see that blockchain is providing the capability to store transactions in an immutable, verifiable, and auditable manner, and offer a unified view of a ledger state. At this stage, if you want, I can stop here to get some answer from your perspective. Please consider this is the tip of the iceberg. I'm not really allowed to go into the detail of the solution from a privacy perspective, but I will be happy to provide you answer on aspect of the solution, the strategy, and the policy related to the project.
Thanks,
Please feel free
Maroaun.
to share your.
Blockchain is really becoming a technology right now. You're going to use it. So now we're going to pass over to Waqas. Waqas, can you screen share?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, we can see. All right. Great.
Thank you very much, Maroaun. Hi, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, based on wherever you are based. We have roughly 15 minutes to present. What I'm going to do is I'm going to present 3 use cases for you. Avanza, our footprint in blockchain is across these 3 areas primarily. So we do a lot of digital government transformation. This is where we help government entities achieve paperless journeys in continuation to what Maroaun is saying. So we're helping a lot of government entities do that. The other area of focus for us is financial regulation and supervision. This is where we set up national level platforms to address a certain area of compliance or regulation, a national eKYC, a national trade finance platform. So these projects are done at a national scale, and typically the regulator is sort of either endorsing or championing these initiatives. And the third area of focus for us is trade and supply chain. This is where we help a lot of customs authorities, government entities, or even large corporates do procure to pay implementations, bilateral trade platforms. So since these are our 3 areas of focus around which we've done all our blockchain implementations, we've picked up one project for each of these 3 areas. If I was to, list down the projects that we are currently involved in, so these are the projects that Avanza is currently involved in. They're all production grade implementations. They're not POCs or pilots. They're full-blown production grade implementations. Some of them have gone live. Some of them are on the verge of going live, and some of them we've just started in 2020. So the 3 projects that we are going to focus on, you'll see a lot of government projects over here. We're doing a lost passport case for Dubai Police. We are automating the complete tenancy contract process for Dubai Land Department. We're working with RTA on complete, vehicle registration provenance. So there are a lot of government entities that we are working with. The 3 projects that we've picked up today to discuss are these. The first one is called Dubai Silk Road. This is an initiative of Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry and DP World. We've launched 2 use cases here, but we'll tell you what the big picture around Digital Silk Road is. What is it that Dubai is trying to achieve through this initiative? The second project that we're going to discuss today is a project that we've done for Dubai Customs in collaboration with DHL, but eventually it will be rolled out to all the other courier companies. So this is a project that sort of stimulates e-commerce business in the region. And this is a step through which Dubai wants to establish itself as the e-commerce hub from a supply chain point of view in the entire region. And we'll tell you how Dubai is trying to do that and what role is blockchain playing there. And the third project that we're going to discuss is called UAE Trade Connect. UTC is the short form. This is a platform, a trade finance platform that is being launched by Etisalat. If somebody doesn't know from other region, Etisalat is the national telco of UAE. And 8 pilot banks, they're launching this. So these are the 3 projects that we are going to focus on. My CTO, Ali Safri, will be presenting jointly with me. I'll start off with the first use case, which is UAE Trade Connect, which falls under the financial regulation and supervision area. And then I'll introduce Digital Silk Road to you, and then Ali will walk you through the details of the project, and then we'll go on to the e-commerce supply chain. So let's begin. What is UAE Trade Connect? So like I said, this is a national initiative done by Etisalat. First Abu Dhabi Bank, which is the biggest bank of UAE, is the visionary behind this. It was their concept. And then Etisalat is launching this, and Avanza is sort of the software partner implementing this. What is the problem that we are trying to solve? The use case is we're starting with invoice discounting. If anybody doesn't know, invoice discounting or invoice financing is a global product that banks offer to SMEs. So as an SME, if I have a receivable against a trade or a project or an invoice, and my customer is going to pay me in 30, 60, or 90 days, I can take this trade or this invoice to my bank, and I can request my bank to finance this trade to help my cash flows. So the bank will pay me sooner, and when I get my funds from the customer, I can pay back the bank. So this is a global product offered to SMEs by the banks globally, and it's called invoice financing or invoice discounting. The problem we have here in UAE is that as an SME, I can go to bank A and seek financing against a trade. I can go to bank B, the third bank, and I can seek financing against the same trade or same invoice from multiple banks, and then I can disappear from the country and never come back. And we've had huge frauds by the volumes of billions in the past many years in UAE. This is a problem that we are trying to solve through this project. So on one hand, just because of a few fraudulent cases, the banks are not very keen to finance SMEs. And on the other hand, the SME financing is suffering. So this is what we are trying to do through this. These kind of projects cannot be done through a bureau model. So if anybody is assuming that, hey, why don't you credit bureau does this, and why can't this be done through a centralized server application? Why do you have to use blockchain? This cannot be done in a central model, because if you're expecting all the banks to dump their invoices data into a central server, you're actually creating a honeypot for somebody to break into. There are so many GDPR and other security and data privacy laws that you'll be violating. So that is why blockchain is an ideal vehicle in which banks have their customers' invoices data on their own nodes, and they can still verify whether a particular trade or invoice has been financed by another bank or not. This is not only a blockchain play for us. This is a very, very interesting project from a technology point of view, because this project encapsulates all the technologies that we're very, very fond of in Avanza Innovations. So on one hand, this is a blockchain play because of the reasons that I just mentioned, that data has to be distributed and it has to be with the banks because it is their customers' data. This is a big AI play as well, this project. The reason is that when people do these kind of frauds, when an SME wants to seek financing against the same invoice, same DL, same trade from multiple banks, they will change the invoice when they're presenting the document to bank B or bank C. It will never be the same document. They'll change the invoice number, they'll change the description of goods. They might even pose as a new company. So there's a lot of fuzzy matching that goes into this project as well. There's an ML model, there's a machine learning model that keeps on learning the type of frauds that have been done. And then it predicts whether, it's the same company. We've come across fraud cases where no two values of the invoices that were presented in two different banks matched. It was just from the logo of the company. It was from the stamp, or the signature, that the object model detected that, yes, it's the same company trying to seek finance against the same trade from two different banks. So there's a very detailed machine learning model that does that. This uses a lot of OCR. Obviously, you can imagine that a lot of trade is done paper-based. So the invoices have to be converted digitally through OCR. And then we use a lot of bots, because in addition to just doing duplicate finance checks, there are a number of other financial crime risks that the system checks. So for example, if somebody is importing steel billets into the UAE and they want to finance this trade, the system will go and check at different marketplaces worldwide, what is the price range of steel billet currently? And the value in the invoice will be tallied against the different marketplaces. to ensure that this is not a case of over invoicing. Then we go and check the buyers and sellers credential. We make sure that they have a web presence, they're in the same line of business as the trade, their blacklist checks, OFAC list checks. There are many checks in the background that are being done through these bots, either through real-time integrations or by scraping through different websites to make sure that this trade is legitimate. So if I was to walk you through the entire application, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, if what's happening in this on the face of it is pretty straightforward. So Fab, for example, First Abu Dhabi is a bank. They have a corporate customer who comes in and says, hey, I want to finance this trade or this invoice. Fab will upload the credentials of that trade or that invoice onto their blockchain node. They have two mechanisms to do that. They either have a web interface, which we discourage, but they also have an API-based interface through which they can upload the data of this invoice and the entire trade, the supporting documents, onto their blockchain node. Then this data is basically replicated onto the Etisalat's node. Obviously, everything is hashed. Nothing can be, seen by Etisalat because of the customer confidentiality. And then our fraud investigation engine kicks in. The fuzzy matching, the third-party checks, all of those things happen. And as a result, the system comes back with a result saying whether this invoice should be financed or not. There's a complete scoring mechanism that is built around the system. Different kind of risks have different weightages. All of that is configured, and then the system comes back with an overall score, and then the scores under different categories. So, I mean, just the illustration flow. So banks upload the documents through the APIs. The documents are and the details of the trade are replicated on the bank's blockchain node. The data is replicated on an Etisalat node. This is where the risk engine, the fuzzy matching, all of that happens. The ML model kicks in. And as a result, the bank is notified whether they should finance this trade or not. So this is basically what the system does. This is the first stage of this project. It has a roadmap, a multi-year roadmap. Eventually, the objective is to make UAE a complete digital invoicing sort of landscape, where any trade that takes place in the country is digitally invoiced by the buyer, by the seller, and then we tie in with the global platforms like the Marco Polos, like the We Trades of the world, so that for international and bilateral trade, even that is done completely paperless. And then this is where the cross-chain orchestration and multiple blockchains sort of talk to each other. So this was the first project that we wanted to discuss. This is called UAE Trade Connect. I didn't want to go into a lot of technical details because we have a mixed audience over here. So that is why I wanted to keep my focus on the business objectives of this project. The second project that we are going to discuss with you is called Digital Silk Road. Like I mentioned in the beginning, this is a joint collaboration between Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industries and DP World. I'll give you the big picture view of what Digital Silk Road is. We've implemented 2 use cases within this big picture multi-year plan, and there are many more use cases that we're currently implementing, and there are many more use cases that are being conceived in parallel. So basically, Digital Silk Road is a one-stop shop for all kinds of trade facilitation and trading in Dubai and eventually in UAE. I don't know if any one of you is familiar with the similar platform called NTP in Singapore. Singapore has launched this platform called Network Trade Platform. I think like a couple of years back. It's not a blockchain-based implementation, but this is where the inspiration is coming from. A lot of countries are trying to replicate the NTP model. The objective here is that if I'm running multiple businesses in UAE or in Dubai, whether they're trading businesses, services businesses, there are multiple interactions that I do with the government for every trade and for my own entity registration. So on a transactional basis, so if I'm an exporter, I will need export authorization documentation. If I'm an importer, I will need a goods declaration with the customs authorities. I will need a certificate of origin in case of. So there are heaps and heaps of documents that you need based on the kind of business that you're engaged in from the different government entities. If nothing at all, you at least need your trade license, right? If you're doing business somewhere in a jurisdiction, you need your trade license. Now, the first thing that Digital Silk Road will do is to make all these government interactions completely paperless. The second thing that this Digital Silk Road initiative does is that it creates a marketplace for traders. If I'm a trader, I will need financing. So the banks and the financing should be part of this platform. I'll need a warehousing solution or a warehousing service. So the warehouse providers should be on this platform. I might need some transportation services. So the transportation provider should be on this platform. So it'll have a vault in it. It'll have my digital documents in it, which I need from different government entities. And it'll be basically an enabler for my entire business ecosystem, because the people from whom I need to seek these services will also be present on this platform. So like I said, this is a multi-year initiative by the government of Dubai. Use cases we've already delivered and we've gone live with them. And there are a couple in the pipeline. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass it on to Ali, who will go into the detail of these use cases. Ali, are you with us?
Yeah, okay, so thank you, Waqas. I'll take from here. Okay, so if we can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Now, one of the problems that the organizations who were doing the trade were encountering across, that they were going to the trade license authority, like for example, JAVSA is one of the free zone trade license authority. What they do is that if you want to set up a company, you need to take a trade license. So now they register there. Now separately, they have to go to a Dubai trade site whereby they have to do the registration. Now, this particular entity would be an importer and exporter, so it will go to the customs authorities and do a registration there as well. Then they will go to the port authority, which is the DP World, and do a separate registration over there. Then they will go to the Chamber of Commerce, which is the Dubai Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and over there they will do the registration there. So this particular customer is moving around and doing separate registration at multiple places. Now, the source of most of the information is this trade license document, which is being generated by this particular free zone authority, JAVSA, already. So one of the use cases that if we want to ride across on a lot of other use cases, first there should be a unification of the trade registration. That this customer importer ID that I am talking about is the same JAVSA trade license number, which is the same member number in the Dubai Chamber of Commerce. So now on a blockchain network, what happens is that when any new company is registered, whatever existing data is available for all the companies, that data is available on the blockchain, shared based on the privacy with the rest of the organizations. And now what customs can do, they can specify that, okay, this particular trade license number is this importer ID of mine. This trade license number is basically this member ID of mine. So now everybody knows that, okay, this is the same customer across multiple organizations. Now, if any information in the trade license changes, those other authorities are preemptively informed about that, okay, these are the changes in the licensing. Basically, it could be based on the ownership or the status of the license. So everybody is aware about the licensing information. And a connected journey for the customer would be there. The next time he wants to go across to the Chamber of Commerce, they will just ask him, okay, what is your unified ID? Or if he is already a customer, they will already know. So they will directly fetch the data from the chain, not ask him to produce your trade license document or the documents related with customs, right? So it is a unified registration. That is the underlying layer for all the other things, which is the higher vision that Waqas talked about. The next case is about the export authorization. So in cases whereby export related documentation is shared, and which is primarily the export declaration, if you can do next on this particular slide. Can we do next on the slide? Okay, so over here, what will happen is that when I need to export, one is that I need to create an export declaration with the customs. So that is some information that would be available. Now, in cases where I'm doing export, in the target country where the import would be happening, there would be a certificate of origin to prove that, okay, from where this actually goods are originated, that needs to be taken from the Dubai Chamber of Commerce. So they actually generate the certificate of origin. Now, for both of these documents, one thing is that invoices are required. So now the customer goes to the customs, present that invoice, creates that export declaration. They go to the Chamber of Commerce side, they present the invoice, and then for each of the invoice, they take the certificate of origin. So all this information is available and it is like segregated across in multiple systems. The next thing is that the port authorities are there. They know about, okay, based on this declaration, when the containers have entered the port, when they are inspected, when they are authorized for the export, when they are loaded on the vessel, and when they have departed across. Now, all this is again a trader related information. So these entities are putting this particular information on the blockchain. So now what will happen if an export declaration is available already? The trader can go to the chamber side and say that, okay, based on this export declaration, because when you will go there, you will already see this export declaration, create my certificate of origin. And that could be shared across with the target audience as well, directly from the platform. When the necessary containers or all the port related events are happening across, he would have just one user interface to see across all what his trade is happening across. And based on consent, he can share this with other organizations as well. So this is how multiple organizations are working together to share the necessary information based on privacy onto a central, onto a distributed blockchain. So this is another use case for the export authorization.
Before we go to the third use case, Ali, I would like to share with the audience an example of how cross-chain orchestration is now happening in UAE. So this is something very, very interesting. Now, we discussed UAE Trade Connect as a project earlier, and then Ali discussed the digital Silk Road. Now there's a marriage that is happening between one blockchain network, which was set up for one particular purpose, and another blockchain network, which was set up for another purpose, because they complement each other. So while UAE Trade Connect is to do with the finance of the trade, the legitimacy of that trade and of that entity is present in digital Silk Road. If a bank is financing a trade, whether that entity is legitimate, whether they're part of a blacklist or not, this can directly come from their licensing authority. So that is why unified registration data is fed into UAE Trade Connect. Now, if a bank is financing an export trade, the export documentation are directly accessed from these government entities, like the certificate of origin. Even the departure of containers and the status of each and every container can be accessed by the bank to finance that trade. Now the bank is much more sure of financing a trade because the legitimacy of that entity and the legitimacy of that trade is being fetched by the relevant regulator and government authorities. So this is where a marriage is taking place between one blockchain network and another. So this is something I think unprecedented. I've not seen this anywhere else in the world, where a market is so mature that they're not just setting up blockchain networks. The already established blockchain networks are now, they have now started to shake hands, you know, and this is where cross-chain orchestration and everything comes about, which in itself is a very detailed topic. I mean, if you go into the technicality of it, it's very detailed, but it's not for today's session. We'll go on to the last use case, which is e-commerce. Ali, if you can continue, please now.
Okay, so for the e-commerce use case, if you can move across the slide, if you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, so
for the e-commerce use case, we are in a kind of a COVID-19 era. So what we are doing across is that we want to order more and more goods by sitting across at our homes from the e-commerce side. So this e-commerce trade was booming previously as well, and now it is moving much more in higher proportions. But for the e-commerce provider, what happens is that they have goods available within certain warehouses. So because they need to have stocks of things available. Now, what happens is that if somebody is ordering across from Saudi Arabia or from Bahrain for a e-commerce company who has its warehouse or the good presence in Dubai, what will happen? They will have to take this particular goods across and move it across to that particular other country. But if they do that, in between there would be customs involved because they have to export this particular consignment from here. Now with Dubai, in most of the cases, export duties are not there. So what you can do is that you can export across those particular cargoes. But with the e-commerce, there is a bad reality that at least 30% of the goods are returned back. Now the problem happens is if the goods are returned back into the country, because the warehouse or the company operates from here, it has to once again go through the customs. And for the customs, there is a part to determine that it is an import or it is a import because of a return of a e-commerce, right? So this adds to the time, and also the e-commerce company, in order to make it faster, sometimes have to pay the duty, so making the whole business unviable as well. So what DHL and customs, Dubai customs thought about was how to make this overall process transparent, so that from a very beginning, the visibility of an order, how it is shipped across, how the declarations are happening for the export, and in case if it returns back, it is completely traceable for all the parties on a transparent blockchain, so that they can directly waive off the duty and everything is visible to everyone, and effectively making e-commerce operations easier to be operated from Dubai, and a lot of more e-commerce companies and providers should come and operate from Dubai. So this is the overall use case which is there. So I'll show you how the overall flow happens. So now, in a normal case, what happens is that from anybody from the world goes to an e-commerce site, purchases the stuff. If we can do the next. Okay, so in order for the custom authorities, there is a HS code, because for all of the different products, there is certain HS code or a harmonized code that is available, that mapping is required. In certain cases, there are certain permits that are required. Then these goods are picked up by the courier companies from the warehouses, and they are shipped across the country. For that, they have to create a bill called home airway bill. With this, the next step is to create a declarations to the customs, and once the customs clears this particular consignment, it is ready to fly off to the other country. So if you can go to the next, do a next. So it will exit and it will go to the other country. Now it would be delivered to the other participants, or in case if it is not able to deliver it, then there would be a return flow. So the export cycle was not having an issue, but the return flow, because it is not traceable, that is creating a bottleneck or problems for the e-commerce company, for the courier companies, and for the customs. So now how they have come up with a revised scenario on the blockchain, that the e-commerce company are part of this blockchain network, the courier companies are part of this blockchain network, and customs itself is a part of the blockchain network. So as a first step, what will happen? Whenever an e-commerce order would be submitted, the order information along with its lines is put onto the blockchain. The second thing is that the courier companies, whenever they will ship this particular product, or when they will package this particular product, when they will create the house airway bill, they will attach this particular information along with this order on the blockchain. Now, when a declaration is filed across, the declaration along with its clearance status is pushed onto the blockchain. Additionally, when this e-commerce company is going to deliver this particular consignment to this particular customer, we know they come and they deliver the goods to us. At that point, they take a signature. So this particular courier company is going to put the delivery status along with the signature on the blockchain as well. The next thing is that, okay, maybe when they went to deliver there, they couldn't find that particular person, right? So this is a case of a complete return. Or maybe the person tried out that fancy jeans and he didn't like it. So he kept the two shoes that he ordered, but he partially returned that particular jeans. So there would be two cases for the returns. One is a full return and one is a partial return. So in that particular case, now e-commerce company can directly indicate that, see, this was my order on the blockchain. For this, the line item 2 in this quantity, I am returning back. Or if it's a full return, the courier company is going to say that we cannot deliver. It was undelivered because the person was no longer there, or whatever would be the result. So it is coming back. Now the courier company can very well, based on this data, which is already present on the blockchain, file that particular import house survey bill. And see, this went back, now this is coming back. And you can check because the courier company is also saying that, and the e-commerce company is also of the same view. They will put the shipping information. When the declaration, import declaration is filed and it is cleared, at the same time, nobody has any problem now because the duties on this can be waived. There is an open exemption on this because it is not an import that is happening, it is some goods coming back into the country. So if we can do a little bit of a next. So there is no exemption available. And now, since these goods have to go back to the warehouse, so there would be a delivery done at the warehouse of the courier company as well. So from there, the signature is also taken and it is kept across. So now, overall, all this complete journey is traceable and available on the blockchain. So this is how this would create much more avenues to fast track the e-commerce business and attract more e-commerce players into the region to operate from Dubai. So this is the overall project. Yeah, if you can go to the next slide, this is just a diagram to indicate, okay, how different nodes are connected and how they are pushing the data. So it's a little bit of technical details. So I think we can skip this for now.
Yeah,
So
I think we are at the end of our presentation, Mohammed. If you'd like to moderate the Q&A now.
Thanks, Waqas and Ali. Well, I mean, our advisor, George Sebastio, he once said that, blockchain will overcome hype when we use a technology as like we use any other technology like car, when we don't talk about blockchain, then we know that blockchain is going to be used in daily life. We didn't know that all this technology is being incorporated in our daily lives. So thanks a lot for presentation. So let's turn on the video right now. If you can turn on the video. So, hi everybody. So let's start the Q&A. We just have half an hour, so let's quickly start. So Maroaun, you're there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So first thing first, let's discuss about how do you Waqas and Maroaun, you like before blockchain, what were you doing? Which you were in technology sector, I know, but which technology sector were you, and what attracted you to get into the blockchain space? I'll go with Maroaun first. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much. My journey has been started in a very different perspective. In fact, I don't belong to technology. The short answer, 16 years ago, I was not a technologist. I was coming from a marketing background. Okay. Then I completely changed my perspective by doing an MBA in information technology, where I started a journey as a data architect, then integration architect, then enterprise architect, then chief architect. So my journey started from an architecture perspective, and data was at its core.
Oh, great. And you moved to blockchain is, I mean, you just got the project, right? Like,
yes. So the move to blockchain, the move to Internet of Things and to artificial intelligence is really coming from my deep hunger to stay relevant in the marketplace.
Okay.
There is a lot of new technologies that are coming, and we cannot afford to be competitive and to stay relevant if we just belong to the technology that we started with. So
Okay.
if 16 years ago I was doing
Yeah.
data modeling now is becoming a commodity. It's
Mm.
no more a differentiator. So that's why I started expanding my knowledge to other area
Mm.
like service-oriented architecture initially, HL7 for the integration in healthcare, then clinical document architecture. Then I jumped to the business process management. After that, to TOGAF from an enterprise architecture view. Then I started Internet of Things and artificial intelligence and the blockchain. So it's technically a continuation of the main architecture background, but I am adding like plugins. Those technologies, I see them as plugins to make the whole stay relevant. This is how I see it.
Great, great. Waqas, you were in Avanza Group before, and you started Avanza Innovations 2 years ago. So can you please tell me about yes, your journey from Avanza Group to Avanza Innovations?
Yeah, so Avanza as a company, I'm part of the board of directors. I'm one of the three directors of Avanza as the group. So we've been running a technology business for 20 years now. And for the past 20 years, we've been doing a lot of channel banking, transaction processing, payment solutions, a lot of focus on the financial industry. Every bank in the GCC would have something from us. We've got a big customer base in Africa, in South Asia. So, I mean, the business is doing well. We're expanding on a daily basis. But 3 years ago, me and my partners and colleagues like Ali, we realized that the product basket that we are working with, because we are a product company, we like to create things. We're not a system integrator. We don't implement anyone else's technology.
Yeah.
Anything and everything that we do is our own. So 3 years ago, we realized that the product basket that we have will get obsolete in the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, this is how rapidly the technology landscape is changing around us.
Right.
I mean, regardless how much improvement I do in my ATM controller or ATM switch software, if the society is going to become paper cashless, what is my ATM controller going to do?
Mm.
So that is when we sat down and we figured out what are the technologies that will shape the future of automation in the next 10 years.
Mm.
And then we picked up these three areas for ourselves, blockchain, artificial intelligence, and robotics. We also meddled with IoT a little bit, but we realized that it's not our strength. We are a software company. We're really not into firmware and hardware, so we stayed away from IoT. I would have loved to explore IoT further, but these are the three areas that we picked up. And then I founded a new company because I didn't want this to be a unit within Avanza,
Okay.
because we realized that we are a 400 employee company roughly as at a group level.
So
And we were
employees are mainly in here, UAE, or around the world?
around the world.
Okay.
We were roughly 100 employees in UAE, and then scattered across. And we knew that we were going to be competing against startups in this area. So I mean, 400 is not a large company size, but still, if you're 400 strong, there's some bureaucracy that seeps into the organization.
Mm.
And because we had to compete with the startups in these new technologies, we had to be as agile as those startups. So that is why it made all the more sense to launch a new company, a startup coming out of a 20-year-old technology company. So that's how I launched Avanza Innovations.
Mm-hmm. Great, great. So since we are short of time, I will quickly jump to, I'll just accelerate. Let me screen share. I have the question I have. If you can see the screen, if you see this, if you see this, for example, this is like the blockchain governance model. You have access and validation. So you have permissionless public and permission private. So like four models. I'll quickly jump into the two main things. One is the usual Bitcoin, which is the first blockchain, which was public permissionless, where anybody could join, anybody could read, and any node could read and write. And we have the private permission, where it's very restricted. So the Bitcoin and Ethereum enthusiasts, they basically say that enterprise blockchain, it's not a blockchain because for many reasons. One is the nodes, there are not many nodes, and nodes are very controlled. And second thing, it's because of the mutability of the data. supports a mutability of data. So what would you say in this situation? Like why is the enterprise blockchains not going to something like public permission, like Sovereign is doing, or like Softwood. So who would go first?
If you want, I will chip in here.
Yeah, please.
And from a philosophy perspective,
Yeah.
I think they are right.
Okay.
The more you push it to the private and permission, the less it will become, or it will keep its nature of the initial blockchain flavor, which is open and available to everybody but immutable.
Okay.
However, we understand that if you want a job for the next 100 years, you need to work in security. Security is there and to stay. We cannot offer visibility or access to anybody. Many business models are built on the top of intellectual property. They are built with a lot of constraints in terms of privacy, in terms of consent. Not many business can afford to open it to everybody. Read only, there is a lot of use cases. However, writing, it's really tricky, and I don't think it will be removed. It's there to stay.
Okay.
Okay.
Waqas,
I'll add up on this as well.
yeah,
That
Ali.
see,
Yeah.
I'm Ali here, so I'll also add up on this particular point is that see what is the case that if you implement a network of certain participants, they do want to share the data across, but you will encounter in any ecosystem, in a blockchain ecosystem, conflicting players. Like for example, the e-commerce case that I shared across.
Yeah.
So there is a custom authority, but there are many courier companies. So now one courier company will not actually want their data to be visible to another courier company. Similarly, there are many e-commerce companies. So one e-commerce company will see another e-commerce company as its competitor.
But but
So
but
as
can I add one thing? Can't you put just hash of it, because right now you are just backing up. You have more
yes,
redundancy.
so
Yeah.
so that is what happens is that the actual transaction information is only visible to the related party,
Yeah.
but on a network, the hash is actually available as a proof for the transaction. So this is a model that happens with the private permission networks.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Waqas, you want to add anything? Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I was muted. Yeah, so I mean, just wanted to add that at Avanza, we've got a very deliberate focus on the kind of work that we want to do in blockchain. And we're completely focusing on private permission blockchain implementations. Of all the projects that I've mentioned, these are ideally championed by government entities, and they're creating their ecosystems around it. And they're all private permission blockchain implementation. So our focus is to use blockchain as an underlying technology to achieve certain objectives for government entities and regulators. And this is a deliberate focus. And there's no right and wrong in this. There might be other technology companies that are completely focused on public blockchains, and they want to solve different kind of problems. But this is an area that we've picked up for ourselves.
Okay.
Private permission.
Okay. So any plans of using hybrid, like Besu, which access both public and private?
Ali, you want to take this on? Besu, yeah. I think you've been experimenting with Besu for some time.
Ali, you're there?
Ali is mute, I think. Ali, you'll have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just got distracted. So if you can let me know what was the discussion about?
Yeah. So are you planning to use like hybrid blockchain, like Besu, which can access both public and private, blockchains?
Yes, we are seeing across those particular cases, but in Besu, what happens is that you are running a kind of a solidity-based smart contract on a Hyperledger Fabric kind of a network, right? So we are seeing across those particular cases, but in terms of implementations, because more alignment is towards Hyperledger Fabric, so the actual production cases are mostly on Hyperledger Fabric.
Okay. 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 All
So
right.
from a research perspective, it is there, but in the actual implementation out there, it is not there. It is basically a hyperledger fabric, which we are basically implementing across multiple government and private entities.
All right. So that's great answers. Our next question is basically you have Avanza and obviously Cognizant is a huge company. You have done many projects, blockchain projects. Give me one blockchain project, which you really admire. Like it's your magnum opus. The best work you have done. You think that this is really the best work you have done. So one project which or your company has done you admire, and also if you give me one project, a blockchain project which is not your uh, companies that you also admire, like other blockchain projects that you really admire. So Waqas, wanna go ahead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think UAE Trade Connect is probably one of the projects that I personally admire the most. I can't speak on behalf of the entire team. Maybe Ali has a favorite
Why is
project.
that so? Why is that
So,
so?
so UAE Trade Connect, and the reason is if you look at the motive and the objective and the problem that this project is solving, we all know that SMEs are the backbone of any economy.
Exactly.
And we also know SMEs, me being an SME, running 3 companies in UAE myself, I know the banks really don't treat SMEs well in this part
Yeah.
of the world.
Yeah.
And it's not because they don't want to, it's just that they're very, very cautious.
Yeah.
Now, if SMEs can get, access to sourcing of funds, a fund source, and the bank's risk can be hedged and mitigated through technology, it's a win-win for both. So the cause of this project without the technology is really, really important for any country. You're opening up funding doors to SMEs, which will act as a catalyst for any economy. And then the technology stack that we're using, like I said, is really, really exciting. It's blockchain, AI, robotics, OCR, all put in one. Lots of moving parts, 9 top banks of UAE and their thought process. So the way this project is being orchestrated is that there are work streams. So all these 9 banks have a trade work stream, they have a security work stream, they have an IT work stream. And imagine sitting with so many smart people in all these work streams. So the sheer project management of this project is next level. We've done a lot of other projects where multiple organizations are involved, but I think the way Etisalat is conducting this project from a project management point of view and the technology and the insights that come from the experts from the banks is just phenomenal. So we were thoroughly enjoying this project.
Great, great. How long is this project been? I guess I missed it. Like how long has it been on live right now?
It's not live. So we went live with the pilot, which was just with FAB back in 2019.
Yeah.
Then the consortium of these 9 banks was signed. And I think according to the latest, we've had some delays because of this COVID-19 situation. We're still looking at June or July timeframe to go live with all the 9 banks.
This year?
This year, yeah.
Okay.
June or July.
Great. Ali, you want to add something? Yeah. What's your favorite?
Yeah. For me as well, the UAE Trade Connect, the advantages that it have is a separate thing, but the technologies that are working together that is making it happen, which is including blockchain, artificial intelligence, robotics. So the problem from a technical perspective is a little bit complex. And that's why it is much more interesting. So it is also one of my favorite projects. But at the same time, this customs e-commerce chain, it is something which has quite much potential to evolve into much bigger ecosystem itself. Because there would be a lot of courier companies and there are a number of use cases related to the warehouses of the custom bonded warehouses, to the free zones that are in discussions. So that is one another project that I think is my personal favorite. So yeah.
And I forgot because any project, blockchain project, that's not your companies, that you admire.
Yeah, I think Walmart, IBM did something really interesting with Walmart, which I really, really liked, which is to do with provenance of food products.
Okay.
I would like to do that. I mean, there are companies over here who are talking to us, some very good brands, local brands that we use on a daily basis. They want to do something like this. So that's a project that I was really inspired from, because that saves a lot of food wastage. We typically have this situation where a certain kind of crop or or need is discarded and you have to get rid of the whole inventory. But if you have the proper provenance, you can do a lot of things.
Exactly.
A variation of that project that I really want to do is counterfeit drugs. We've seen in different countries where medicine, baby formula milk, is being counterfeited, which kills people. So I would really like to be part of such a project, not just for commercial reasons, but for other reasons, where these kind of provenance is being maintained and then practiced. So food provenance and drug provenance.
There is one UAE project, I guess Verofax is by Marhabi. He's doing something related to that, tracking the provenance of drugs. He's dealing with the Dubai Health Authority. That's a Verofax project. So Marwan, you want to add?
In fact, the project I admire to be very transparent is this one, the one that we just implemented for the government of UAE, with 19 banks so far integrated, 5 exchanges, the 2 major telecom. We have 5,000 services between government and private services implemented, 84 entity in terms of local and federal government, as well as private. I think in terms of impact, this is the widest blockchain implementation, to my knowledge, in the region and potentially in the extended geography. So I like this particular project for its impact. I like it for being a part of this team. I admire a lot of the effort that has been done by the team members, both the management and the technology team, which, by the way, I would say hello to one of my team members who joined.
Oh, okay. Hi.
One of the experts here in the project, Mariam.
So any other project?
And here, the other project that I personally liked is the blood bank. The blood bank supported by blockchain. I believe having a safe blood donation is definitely key for us, a human being. And this kind of support to the humankind is something that I personally...
Blood bank by ENY, ENY in States?
To be fair, I don't recall the implementer, but the concept, I like mainly the concept and the use case out of it.
Yeah, there's something called Blockchain, it was done by ENY in the United States. So thanks, it was great answer, some really nice use cases. At the moment we have 15 minutes, so at the moment let me take some questions from our audience. The first question is from Kent Lau. Kent Lau is a pharmacist, I believe, from Hong Kong. He's asking how many channels are using Fabric? Any special features for chain code? I guess Ali would be the best to answer this.
Yeah, so what generally happens and what we have seen across is that the channel concept, we do not actually create a lot of different channels. What we go across is that we create private collections based on the different organizations, and we just create one channel, because what happens is that still the hash of that particular transaction that is happening across any participant is available with all the nodes. But all that data, there is no public data. We do not store anything on the public chain because it may drastically increase the size of the chain. So all the transaction level data is in the private collections, and the private collections are created depending on the number of parties or the organizations or the MSPs that are part of that particular chain. So channel we generally create as one channel.
Okay. All right. I guess that answers the question.
And I would add, from our implementation, we didn't use Hyperledger.
Okay.
We were using Ethereum Quorum. And at some point in time when we started the project, we did a benchmark. And this benchmark where we were shooting a number of transactions in terms of volume stress test of different platforms. And we observed out of specific threshold that we were hitting some limitation in Hyperledger. So considering that our use case is at the level of the country, it was quickly put aside.
Okay, great. One question is regarding the challenges faced. I mean, we are just looking at the surface. I believe that Waqas, Maroaun, you had, and also Ali had sleepless nights. Like you are on the implementation side of emerging technology, right? So there's this law called Gall's law, where it said that has to incorporate two or more complex systems, they should be aligned, I mean, there's so many variables and interdependencies, to make sure that it functions, right? So, because if you don't do, there's so many blind spots and the systems can crash. So have you ever had the situation where you got called, in the late night, because some systems crash or something happened, if yes, tell us a story. So yeah, Marwan is smiling. So
Yeah, this is definitely business as usual.
okay,
Definitely business as usual. Fortunately, I believe I am fortunate because I belong mainly to architecture. We
okay,
don't really keep the assets running. We are not really accountable
mm,
for keeping the asset running. But we share the same pain of our colleagues,
mm,
especially during the implementation phase of it, when everything is not yet stable. We are making sure to stabilize the environment from an infrastructure perspective, from a technology part of it, from an application and the configuration that has been hard coded, and you will discover a lot of stuff. And the client is not really open to hear excuses.
of course,
Get the job done, and that's it.
yes,
So everyone is running with this mindset. And I believe any mature organization at this point in time,
mm,
they are built and run based on that perspective,
mm,
with high level of ownership from the people who stay late at night. They are really available. They try to document the architecture, the implementation, the configuration, the tools, the Q&A, the most faced issues in production, the most weak component of the solution, the mapping of the error code versus the resolution. So there is a lot of tricks on how to manage, but definitely, as you just said, it doesn't come without the right level of stress.
great, great. Waqas and Ali, you must have stories.
Yeah, I mean, in our case, I mean, I've been running a technology business for 20 years, and I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of technologies go in and out of fashion. So if you're running the ATM fleet of a bank,
Mm,
it's not easy, If an ATM goes down, if you're in the transaction processing business, I
mm,
think that the problem for blockchain projects sort of compound
mm,
because you do not have a customer. You have a bunch of organizations that
yes,
are your customers,
yeah.
and they all have different temperament, different culture, different security standards,
Mm,
different way of engagement with suppliers.
mm,
So one of the first projects that we ever implemented, we don't even discuss that project. It's strange. It's a blockchain project we did in 2017, which is a reconciliation and settlement of government funds. We
mm,
did this project for Department of Finance of Dubai and Smart Dubai government.
mm,
Now imagine when we went live with the pilot, there was a node hosted at DIWA, one at KHDA, Emirates NBD and I were part of the project, and Smart Dubai government obviously was the champion.
mm,
Now these are 5-6 different organizations with different cultures.
mm, mm,
Now
yeah.
during the implementation, I mean, I'm not going to go into those challenges, but post implementation, purely in terms of support, the way these people would engage Avanza would completely differ.
Yes.
And since this is such a new phenomena of
Yeah.
having 5 organizations
Mm,
share a particular project and then talk to the vendor, it wasn't tried and tested before. So we
mm,
had to go and put down these best practices or invent the best practices for supporting a blockchain project. You
mm,
know,
mm,
how would the L1 support? So, but there are many stories. I'm sure Ali would have many more stories in which we get called in the middle of the night or early morning because something wasn't working. But
mm.
if you're in the software development business, especially for mission critical software, it's a professional hazard. I mean, it's part and parcel.
Okay. Okay. Since Ali, you want to add something?
Yeah, so there are many stories, and even in this particular first project that
I want to
we,
stress on this story where top management said okay implement, but the middle management said no because of different reasons. They'll smart contracts will make them redundant and all this. I mean, you face a situation like that, right?
yeah, we face a lot of situations like that. What
Okay.
I'm trying to say is that other than that, the kind of challenges were there that, for example, Hyperledger itself was also evolving within that particular time period. So
Yeah.
we started like from the Fabric uh, point 0.6 version, we started, 1.0 came on, and we had done development on which we had to go live. But depending on the transaction actual load, it was found out that Hyperledger is not able to actually perform not that particular well. And a week was there, and 1.1 was released. So within another week, we ported to 1.1, and everything was then stable. So these are the kind of challenges that also comes, that okay, you are building or implementing a technology that also is evolving basically. There are more challenges to it than a normal project, along with all these project management challenges as well as interaction with multiple parties. This is one another area which is there. So just I wanted to point that thing out.
Okay, thanks. I would love to also ask right now, it's time to ask, what exciting blockchain projects do you have in store right now for, I would go with Avanza first.
So, like I said, I mean, there are new projects that we are doing. Some I can disclose, some I cannot. But the most interesting part for us is
Yeah.
that we've become the biggest matchmaker in town when it comes to blockchain. So like I told you, that Digital Silk Road and UAE Trade Connect are joining hands. You must have heard some weeks back that Dubai Economic Department, Dubai Economy,
Yeah.
has launched a unified trade license registry, right?
Yes.
Now we are integrating that particular blockchain with Digital Silk Road. Similarly, these use cases that we're doing with Digital Silk Road are getting expanded to the exporters like the Nestle's and the big trade companies. So the seeds that we've planted
Yeah.
are now growing into plants and trees and having branches of their own and sort of getting, sort of
So there's
converted to
interoperability now interoperability between two
interoperable.
different
And
departments.
this is amazing. I mean, because this is where two networks are talking to one another and you're having cross-chain orchestration.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from an engineering point of view and from a business point of view, both this is phenomenal. And we're really enjoying that.
Great. Marwan, you want to add?
No, I think we share the same passion for technology from an engineering perspective, from business perspective. Now with COVID-19, there is a lot of project that has been put aside, especially the non-critical ones. And we expect that there will be a much more project that will come from healthcare in the upcoming months. So this is information I can share at this stage in terms of available opportunity.
Okay. So, Waqas, you want to add on the blockchain technology in the post COVID-19 world?
I think one of the most important aspects, I don't know whether some of us would agree, some of us would not agree, but still have to go ahead with it. I think at some point in time, we'll all have to carry with us some way of proving that we are either immune or we are vaccinated. So I think this is going to be one of the very important blockchain use cases, making ensure that the person who's been given a travel document, whether a person who's coming to attend a conference, whether a person who's going into a mall is immune and vaccinated. And I think this is going to be the big play.
Contact tracing. If you see the white paper by Google and Apple, it's basically the hash. They want to maintain privacy, and they upload this hash in a central server. I mean, I think blockchain can help. To decentralize and basically maintain privacy.
Because the stakeholders are different. The stakeholders are global. Like I said, if you're going to the airport and you want to travel, the airline, the civil aviation authority, the receiving country, the departing country, there's so many stakeholders. So you can't have this data at one place, even with one government. So you'll truly have to become a global citizen And at a global level, your immunity or your vaccination status has to be checked as and when required by the relevant parties. So, and I think blockchain can play a very important role in this.
Great, great. I mean, we're almost out of time. So thanks, Maroaun. Thanks, Waqas, and thanks, Ali, for coming to see the screen. So before I finish, I would like to thank the research team, Zahid and Maharaj and others for helping with the research, and Musa too. If you remember in the beginning, I said there's a prominent blockchain guy coming in on May 30th. And let's play a contest right now. We could basically, I'll give a tip, guess contest. So that person has a PhD in physics from Stanford. Satoshi used his research to deploy the first blockchain. So if you want to know who he is, download the white paper and go to the references to find out more about him. He's also known as one of the founding father of blockchain. So those who can guess it, please email the answers to info@gbauae.org with the name of the person. If you tell me the name of the person, just the name of the person, the first three people, you can talk to him live when he comes on the May 30th. And if you tell me the research papers he have written, if he comes to Dubai, you can meet him face to face. So the answers should be received before 8th May, 28th May, and the answers will be announced by second week of May. So thanks a lot. Thanks everybody for coming. And I believe Avanza, and we just touched the tip of the iceberg. You have a lot of projects, and I wish you and Cognizant, Maroaun, all the luck. And thanks audience for coming, showing up. And I am your host, Mohammed Shanawaz, signing out. Stay home, stay safe, or keep a safe distance. So thanks everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.